The Ventura County Fire Department Physical Agility Test, also known as the VCPAT, was validated by VCFD line personnel of all ranks, certified by Fire and Police Selection Incorporated. The purpose is to provide a specific physical fitness standard for entry-level firefighters and identify candidates with ideal physical fitness levels. During the test, candidates will perform a series of tasks that are commonly expected to be completed on the fire ground or in emergency scenarios. There are 11 continuously timed events in the VCPAT. To be successful in the exam, you must complete all 11 events in 8 minutes and 18 seconds or less. The VCPAT is a physical and mentally demanding exam. It requires an equal amount of strength, endurance, along with the ability to follow instructions once fatigued. We highly suggest that you consult with your physician prior to taking the exam. Before you take the exam, there is some basic information that you should be aware of. You must arrive 30 minutes prior to your exam in workout shorts, shirt, along with tennis shoes. You must sign the evaluation form prior to the start of your exam. Upon completion of the exam, the proctor will give you your score and let you know if you passed or failed. Once you receive your score, you will place your initials next to your score as acknowledgement. Your time for the exam will start on your movement. You must walk from event to event, but during an event, you can run. You will be provided a helmet, turnout coat, SCBA, and structure gloves. Knee pads will also be provided, but are optional. If you are unsure of how to properly wear the equipment, notify a proctor and they will assist you prior to the start of your exam. You can bring your own turnout coat, helmet, and structure gloves. The coat must have an inside liner and the gloves must be structure gloves. If you choose to bring your own gear, it must be inspected prior to the start of your exam by a proctor for approval. If you have any questions about the exam, it is your responsibility to ask those questions prior to the start of the exam. Event 1 is the dry hose drag. Place the hose over your shoulder and across your chest. You must keep control of the nozzle at all times. To start, you will first run to the right of the first barrel. As you pass the barrel, there is a designated marker you must touch with your foot prior to heading towards the second barrel. As you make your way to the second barrel, run to the left of it. As you pass the second barrel, a proctor will be standing at a delineator signaling where you will place your foot before you make a hard right toward the end of Event 1. At the end of Event 1, there is a square you must place the nozzle in prior to moving on to Event 2. You cannot move on to Event 2 if the nozzle is not in its designated area. Event 2 is the charged hose drag. Place the hose over your shoulder and on your chest. You must keep a hand on the nozzle at all times. As you make your way through the simulated doorway to the designated area, you cannot pass the boundary created by the row of cones. Your proctor will identify that boundary for you as you continue along. You will run past the corridor to the designated area. Once you reach the designated area, turn back around and head towards the descending corridor. As you descend through the corridor, keep a hand on the nozzle at all times. You can crawl when you feel the need to crawl. Just outside of the corridor, at the end, there is a box. Place any part of the nozzle in the box and come out of the corridor to complete Event 2. If the nozzle is not in the square, you will not be allowed to move on to the next event. Event 3 is the Halyard raise. Before starting, make sure to brace the right side of the ladder, also known as footing the ladder. Extend the fly section using the thumbs upright hand over hand method. Raise the fly section all the way up until you hit the stops. Bring the ladder down in a controlled fashion without letting the halyard slip. If you do not foot the ladder, you will be asked to lower the ladder, foot it properly, and start again. If the halyard slips through your hand, you must restart the event from the beginning. If the halyard slips through your hands a second time, you will be disqualified. After successful completion of the halyard raise, you must walk to Event 4. Event 4 is the roof walk. To start this event, pick up the saw and walk 10 feet up the roof. You must touch every rung on the way up the ladder, including the rung marked which signals 10 feet. On the way down, you must walk backwards but can skip rungs. Sliding the saw on the roof on the way down for balance is acceptable. You are not allowed to turn around and walk forward as you descend the ladder. If you skip a rung on the way up, you will be required to start the event all over again. Place the saw in its original location once you are done. You will not be allowed to continue to the next event if the saw is not in its designated area. Once you have completed the roof walk, you can walk to Event 5. Event 5 is the attic crawl. Pick up the simulated flashlight and crawl through the crawl space. You can crawl on either hands and knees or crab crawl on your hands and feet, as long as you stay below the barrier. When you have crawled through the crawl space, come out and walk back to where you picked up the simulated flashlight and place it back in its designated area. Be careful when crawling not to knock over the barriers. If you knock over a barrier, a proctor will reset the barrier and you will have to restart the event all over again. After you have successfully completed the attic crawl, you must walk to Event 6. Event 6 is the ventilation exercise. Pick up the sledgehammer and position yourself on the prop. You can place one foot on the footrest, or you can stand closer to the target if you prefer. You will be required to strike the target 20 times. The head of the sledgehammer must go above your head with each strike. The proctor will count your strikes for you and coach you on any adjustments that need to be made. Strikes do not count if the head of the sledgehammer does not come above the helmet or if the candidate does not have control of the tool. Examples of not having control of the sledgehammer would be bringing the tool above your head and just allowing it to free fall to the target, or if the sledgehammer bounces off and around the target upon a strike. Once you have hit the target 20 times, place the sledgehammer back in the designated area and walk to Event 7. You will not be allowed to go on to Event 7 if the sledgehammer isn't in its designated area. Event 7 is the victim removal. Drag the weighted training mannequin around the cones that are 10 feet apart and place it back in the designated area it started in. There are several methods to do this. You can grab the mannequin by the arms or wrist, under the arms, or by the webbing and drag backwards. You may not drag the mannequin by the head, neck, or clothes. You also can't pick the mannequin up and walk forwards around the cones. Once you have dragged the mannequin around the cones successfully, you can walk to Event 8. Event 8 is the ladder removal and carry. Begin by finding the balance point marked by the yellow tape on the ladder. Place a hand on both beams as you remove the ladder onto your right hand and shoulder. Use your left hand for stability. Walk around the cones and place the ladder back on the rack, paying attention to the markers on the ladder. The ladder must be placed back on the rack in its original position. There are blue markers on the beams designating where the ladder rests on the rack. When replacing the ladder, both ends of the ladder must be off the ground. You are not allowed to rest any part of the ladder on the diamond plate. You are allowed 2 penalties during this event. After your 3rd penalty, you will be disqualified. Examples of penalties are dropping the ladder, a proctor-assisted grounding, voluntarily grounding the ladder to regain stability, or the ladder falling over your head. If while carrying the ladder you drop it, are losing control, or need assistance grounding the ladder, the proctor will assist you where you are at in getting the ladder to the ground. You can then safely reposition the ladder back on your shoulder to continue the event. If you replace the ladder on the rack incorrectly, the proctor will direct you to replace it in its original position. Upon completion, you will walk to the start of Event 9. Event 9 is the stair climb with hose. Drape the structure bundle over your shoulder and proceed to the 3rd floor. On your way up to the 3rd floor, you are allowed to skip steps, but remember that on your way down, you must touch every step. When you get to the 3rd floor, there will be a designated area inside the doorway on the right to which the proctor will direct you to drop the hose pack. After you drop the hose pack, you will begin Event 10. Event 10 is the crawling search. To start this event, start the crawl from where you drop the structure bundle and proceed around the cones. You can either crawl on your hands and knees, or you can crawl on your hands and feet. Once you have crawled around all 4 cones, the proctor will advise you to get up, grab the structure bundle, and proceed back down the stairs where you picked up the hose. Remember, on the way down, you must touch every step. If you skip a step on the way down, a proctor will ask you to come back and touch the step with your foot that you skipped. Once you've reached the ground, place the structure bundle back in its original location, and you can now move on to the next event. Event 11 is the stair climb with air bottles and hose hoist. To start this event, grab the 2 SCBA bottles that are slung together by webbing and sling them over your shoulder. Go back to the 3rd floor. You can skip steps on the way up. When you get to the 3rd floor, place the bottles in the same location that you put the structure bundles. Proceed to the window where the drop bag is and hoist the hose up to the 3rd floor. You are not allowed to let the rope drag on the windowsill. When the nozzle gets to you, grab it and place it in a square behind you. The proctor will identify the square for nozzle placement. Once the nozzle has been placed in its correct location, go back to the windowsill and hoist the rest of the hose into the building. Again, you are not allowed to let the hose drag on the windowsill. If the hose does drag on the windowsill, you will be given a warning. If you continue to drag it across the windowsill, you will be disqualified. There is a 60-foot mark on the hose that will signal the end of the hose hoist. Once the 60-foot marker has crossed the windowsill, the proctor will advise you to stop hoisting the hose. Grab the SCBA bottles and proceed back down the tower, touching every step on the way down. When you get to the bottom floor, cross the finish line prior to putting the bottles down. Your time will end once you have crossed the finish line. After you have completed the test, return all of your equipment to a proctor. Be sure to take proper cool down measures. If you feel you are in the need of medical assessment and/or treatment, advise a proctor and assistance will be given. This concludes your orientation for the VCPAT. Thank you for your participation and good luck.